In this episode of OG55, we have a very special guest with us today. We got Mr. Dave from Fresh Baked. We were talking all about those Disneyland Resort announcements at the D23 Ultimate Fan event. We're going to talk about them, speculate, break it down up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We're talking all about the Disneyland announcements at D23. But before we start, I want to introduce our special guest, Dave from Fresh Baked. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute pleasure. We've been watching Fresh Baked for years and years and years. It is an absolute honor to have you on the show and talk shop and you kind of nerd out, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
If you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, if there's Disneyland fans out there watching us that live on the moon that have not heard of Fresh Baked, but if you can let everybody know.
I appreciate you saying that very much. Yeah, we are a YouTube-facing channel, Disney-facing channel, doing covering the parks for the past 12 or 13 years, I think. We're on YouTube and Fresh Baked. We're on Twitter. I still call it Twitter, at Fresh Baked Disney, and on Instagram at _Fresh Baked.
There he is. Make sure you follow and subscribe to Dave and Fresh Baked if you have not already. And I got George, the Italiano, whose beard has grown significantly since yesterday.
Yes.
George, you can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. Okay, let's dive into our topic, which is D23 and those Disneyland Resort announcements. Dave, a lot has been going on since the expo. They dropped. I mean, look, it was crazy, right? Because we went into this expo. Fans were upset. The last couple expos have not been that great. A lot of blue sky stuff, a lot of what if we could kind of do stuff, but maybe we won't, kind of energy. Josh gets on that stage. He's like, everything we're announcing today is greenlit and confirmed and going to happen within that 5-year time period. Before we kind of dive into the details, what were your overall thoughts of the presentation and what they actually announced for Disneyland?
It was A+ across the board for me. I thought this was their best presentation in terms of the showmanship. First of all, I've seen quite a few parks panels, and from back into the basement days, when you had to wait in that basement down there to see the
literally
panel.
And figuratively, yeah.
But this was they really hit it. They put a lot of money and a lot of theatrics into the event, which I really appreciated. They hired outside talent to do some great performances, and even Josh. I thought Josh was. I don't know if you've ever seen Chapek host a parks panel or.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like some people have it, some people don't. Josh has got it. Josh was great, I thought, that night.
Yeah, he came. He had a checklist of things he had to do. He had to kind of reassure the fans, kind of build that trust back, because there has been a little bit of fan. The trust has been broken with the fans and Disney Parks management, with the announcement, the non-announcement announcements of the past expos and everything. So he came in and he's like, yeah, these are all greenlit. And then we got a lot of surprises too. Like I was going to be happy if we got news on the Avengers e-ticket and we got some news on Pandora. And then he comes out there and he's like, yeah, we're doing Coco, a boat ride. We're doing another Avengers ride. I'm like, this is crazy. This is a lot more than I was expecting, so. It was interesting.
I would agree with that. It was more than I thought we would get. I mean, everybody had sort of their checklist of things that they wanted to hear about. And really the only thing that wasn't mentioned was Tomorrowland, but that's a whole story by itself. But yeah, there were some surprises too. I was not expecting a second Avengers ride, and putting it in the same space. They're going to put it in literally the same space as the e-ticket? Like, what? How? That's the kind of head exploding. Like, how? I thought there wasn't enough room for that alone. Now, but you're telling me there's room for 2 attractions in there?
That's wild to me. Yeah, we were kind of speculating, George and I. Like, do you think because they got rid of the Doctor Strange show over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of talk and rumor and what have you of like why they canceled the show. A lot of it has been mostly centered around like the performers, right, and the unions and things like that. But I mean, do you think it's a possibility that maybe they canceled that show because that area for that show is going to be kind of like folded into this new area with the two rides?
There are a lot of answers to that question because it's more layered than that, but. On the one hand, no. The Strange closure is separate. The Strange closure is an entertainment cut, and that's why it was. But it's not because of the strike, or not the strike, but because of the union. It's actually a different union than the one that was formed, and it's not a response to that. But it is part of Disney's ongoing tradition of cutting entertainment. That's right up there with getting a candy cane on Main Street during the holidays. Is that they're going to cut entertainment? But it's. I thought for a minute, initially, I thought maybe they are trying to creep that, the second Avengers ride into that space. But to my understanding, no, it's going to be that second attraction is going to be behind that same wall, and it will not, go into the path or across the street into Doctor Strange. What their plan is for Doctor Strange, I don't know. That's still a bit of a mystery, but it's. At this point, it is just a budget cut. But this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of answers. It is also part of Disney's tradition. In order to pay for one thing, they cut other things. And this goes all the way back to, Indiana Jones and all that. They find the money to operate these things. They find the resources to operate these things from other attractions. Not necessarily one for one, but usually in order to build something, it's going to cost you something. That's typically the case.
Interesting. It's like the Infinity Stones, right? It's like you gotta. There's a trade-off.
Right. What do you love? What do you love? That's what's going to cost you.
Exactly.
Now, staying on the Stark Flight Lab, after Josh made the announcement and what have you, I was kind of thinking, and this is just me, in my own little world, trying to figure out like how Disney is like using the connective tissue for both attractions, and. I know in the original concept art for the Avengers e-ticket, which eventually I'm going to have to start calling it Infinity Defense. I can't get to that point yet. I don't know why. But they were supposed to utilize the Kuka arm. I'm assuming that's what they were originally going to do. So it makes me wonder that if they already kind of had them in place, but since that they decided not to use it for the Avengers e-ticket, it's like, hey, well, since we have them, let's kind of utilize it for like a smaller kind of attraction. And then I'm also thinking too that when they said that Robert Downey Jr. was coming back on board to reprise his role as Tony Stark, not saying that you have to go on the attractions in any particular order, but it makes me wonder that if you go through the training first in the flight lab, it's gearing you up for the actual battle itself with the e-ticket.
Well, I think that's probably the story, but as you said, it's not a requirement or anything like that. There's not like a stage, but I mean, I like the story, and it shows thought. It's a thoughtful consideration. I would be down with that. That's fine. That's good. I'm not sure about the attraction itself. I think that they're just trying. They had a little space and they wanted a little extra, and they wanted, I think they had an opportunity to do a little something because it's not a big footprint. This attraction, I think it's a confined space that they operate this thing in. So it's not like, and it's going to share probably the footprint of the other building. So it's not like they have to build a whole nother show building. You know what I mean? Like it's part of the same space. So I just feel like they were just trying to do a little extra, which, I hope I'm right on that anyway, because it would show that they're interested in going extra as opposed to doing less, which is, again, that's been the history, is doing a little bit less than what they had promised.
Yeah, I'm kind of like right now, I'm kind of my mindset, and I could be wrong. I'm kind of just like speculating with this, but I'm kind of getting Test Track vibes from this Kuka arm attraction, where it's like, we're gonna put you in the Kuka arm, and now we're gonna test the barrel roll, and now we're gonna test the flight this and the spins and all that, and you're going to kind of walk through this kind of training process. Feel very test tracky, where you know when you ride test track, it's like we're testing the tires and the banking of the turns and all that. So that's kind of the vibe I'm getting with this thing. The theming might be kind of minimal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, hopefully there is some sort of big battle at the end or something, but I'm not really holding my breath on that.
Well, I'd be okay if there wasn't, because the space that they're trying to operate this in does not suggest the ability to really go all the way. It would be a screen, and so I would rather they just not put a screen in there and just do the testing, the physical testing, and leave it at that. You try to put a screen or something like that in that ride, and I think it would be a fail, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Now I want to ask you, because we're kind of in that general proximity, right? Sure. They got to get rid of, in order to build this stuff. Disney said the other day they're gonna bulldoze that red car trolley barn. I know this broke my heart, Dave. This broke my heart because I love the red car trolley.
Yeah, me too.
But you made a tweet actually that I think was spot on and exactly kind of how I was feeling actually, and we'll get to that in a second. But what's your overall thoughts? Because when I saw this news, I was like, okay, because we've been all speculating, where's Pandora going to go, right? I was convinced it was going to go in the Simba lot, because it's like that's basically a blank canvas. You can kind of go in there and you can just play with it, right? You got like 25 acres to kind of mess with. But I'm hearing a lot of rumors like, no, it's going in Hollywoodland, and then they announced that the red car trolley is going away, and they're getting rid of that barn, and I'm like, see, that makes me feel like Pandora is going in Hollywoodland. They're getting rid of the barn, to make some room for the Avengers ride. But the real reason is because all that track is going to get ripped out because it's probably going to be Pandora. That's kind of where my mind is at right now. But what do you think? What's your kind of philosophy on what's going on with this thing?
Yeah, my gut reaction initially was loss. I felt loss because I mean, it's not like I ride the red car trolley all the time, and I'm sure most of us would say that. No, I don't. But it has nothing to do with that. I don't also ride the Main Street vehicles all the time either. But I love the Main Street vehicles. Okay,
right.
You take those off of Main Street, and I'll burn it down. I'll burn that place down. So I mean, the feeling's not exactly the same. But yes, there was loss. But it just took me a moment. What I try to do whenever I talk about moments of change or trying to accept change is I think it's what I call the 100-year concept, and I try to imagine what the park is going to look like in 100 years. And I would ask, do you believe that in 100 years it's going to look exactly like it does today? And the answer is there's no way.
No way.
Obviously, there's going to be change. So once you get over that fact, once you get over the fact that the park is not going to look the same in the future, it helps to accept the changes that are happening in the present. Once I got over that, then I realized, what, it actually isn't. You do the math, you play the tapes, it actually isn't the Avengers e-ticket that is killing the red car. It's the fact that the backlot sucks. The backlot sucks, and it needs to be fixed. And so no matter what they do with the Avengers e-ticket, they have to solve the problem of the backlot. What this tells me is that they are solving the problem of the backlot. The loss of the red car is more a indication that they have a plan, some kind of plan for the backlot. And now that could be Avatar. But I think you're right. I still don't, everything is on the table for whatever that's worth. As far as I know, the whispers that I've heard, it's not settled. It's not settled where Avatar is going. Wow. In fact, they're still trying to decide how big they want to make it. So there are places to put Avatar that make sense in that regard. And as you said, it's a blank canvas at Simba. I am 100% in the Simba camp, still have been. I could be wrong. It could wind up being in the backlot, but everything that makes sense about that makes sense in Simba, and nothing about putting an Avatar in the backlot makes sense to me. But they have some other plan for the backlot, and it's going to be. This is the strange part. This is the part that people got to get it over. Is that it's not that Disney wants to be out of the red car business. Right. They want to be out of the 1920s Hollywood business. That's the thing that's going away. Right. So once you accept that it's not 1920s Hollywood, it doesn't matter what they're doing. They're going to lose. The red car's going away no matter what. No matter what happens in the 10 years, the one thing that's not happening is the red car. The only way the red car stays is if the Hollywood stays, and it's not staying. Hollywood's not staying, you guys. It's not staying. There's no way. It's not. It's not staying. There's no way. And you made a great tweet, Dave, the other day. You said something. I'm going to kind of like summarize what you said, or paraphrase. You said something to the effect of, "I love the red car trolley. I should be more mad than I am.
And I think I'm not mad because we're getting a lot of investment in this park. And you made that tweet, and I was talking to George just like, I think like the night before. So I kind of said the same thing to George on the phone. I was like, I love the red car. People were like tagging me on Twitter, like, are you like devastated, OG? Like, you know, and I'm like, I should be, because I really do love it. But the thing is too, is like when the pandy hit and we came back from the lockdowns, there was like that weirdness where it's like, is this thing going to come back? You know? Yeah. And it did come back. But I've always kind of been on eggshells ever since. Like, this thing is probably not long on this earth, you know? So I've been kind of my mindset for since the pandemic, like 2021 when the parks reopened, I've been kind of in that mindset of like, this thing is probably short-lived anyway. So I've kind of come to terms with it over the years. And we're also getting a lot of stuff. Like I said on the top of the show, like stuff that I wasn't expecting, like a Coco dark ride and things like that. And it's like, it's hard to be mad when we're getting a lot. I think I'd be madder if it was just shutting it down for like a cost cut thing. But it seems like you were saying, there's a plan, and they're like kind of reimagining the side of the park. And in order to do that, sometimes things have to go. So it's hard for me to be kind of mad over it. But what say you, Italiano?
Yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts on the red car. I do
George
enjoy them.
George almost dies every time he's in DCA. The thing almost hits him every time.
I do, because it's like I'm in the middle of it's like I'm the Italiano. I'm walking here. It's like they expect me to move every single time. It's like, you just go around me. It's like
go around you. Yeah, how rude of them, George.
I know. No, but it did fit the aesthetics for what it was at the time. You know, when Sunshine Plaza became Buena Vista Street, you know, putting you in that era of, you know, when Walt first came to Hollywood, you know, to start his career and what have you. So it was a nice fit. But yeah, I definitely agree with you, Dave. I feel like that the red car trolley is going to go no matter what, unless Hollywood stays. And I'm sorry, if you look at the whole aesthetics of the park, I'm sorry, that section of the park is just, it screams DCA 1.0, and it definitely needs a facelift. And even to now, even though, you know, we're hearing things back and forth that, you know, it's, you know, there's potential that Avatar is going to go in Hollywoodland, and Disney can do anything. They can rework the whole system where it's like, if they do put it in there, it's like, wow, I can't believe this was Hollywoodland. It doesn't even look like what it used to be. But I'm still trying to convey myself that even though you can't really get married to the concept art, because it can change at any time, but the overall aesthetics of what they want the land to look like, I just don't see how it's going into that area. With the Simba lot, as you said, OG, it's a blank canvas. You can basically just do whatever you want to do with it. And then you also have the notion of like, how are they going to maneuver the monorail around that if it's going to go into the backlot area?
Well, I think the reason why it's so hard to imagine it in the backlot is because there's currently stuff in there, and there's like this kind of like perception it's actually smaller than it really is. Because when you get in there, it's like, okay, whatever. But those buildings, those like, you know, Hollywood and Dine, it's empty now, and like even the Hyperion, I know there are a lot of these buildings, they're huge. So like when they start, if it goes there and they start bulldozing this stuff, we're going to see how big that area is.
Because I'm still trying to see like even the transition, like when you come right off of Buena Vista Street and you make a left, I don't know how, I don't get it. I still don't. I don't know how they're doing. Like, I've obviously, like when they do it, if they do it there, I'll look at it and say, oh, why didn't I think of that? Like that was like so easy. But it's like right now, I just can't see the transition going from Buena Vista Street to Pandora.
Well, what do you think about that, Dave? Is it possible like that we see this park get like a name change, like the Paris park and stuff, and they just call it like Disney Cinematic Adventure, and they just put a bunch of these lands in there and they call it a day?
Well, first I'll say more is made of that than that doesn't bother me. I don't really care what they call this park. I don't really care what they call Disneyland Paris or the Hollywood park. None of that really matters to me. You know, the for that matter, the Brer Country, Critter Country thing, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't, as long as it looks good, I don't really care.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's regarding George's point. There is no transition. There is no transition from 1920s Hollywood to Avatar. the only way you do that. By the way, and this is something that I don't think we give enough credit for in Animal Kingdom. That's such a standard, the Pandora that they have there, but they've got, I don't even know, you've got 10 minutes of walking where it's just this beautiful moment. It's easy, it's seamless, and it's beautiful the way they can transform you from the entrance or that first little walk into the park into Pandora. You don't even know it's happening. It's the most beautiful crossfade that you'll ever see. Impossible, literally impossible to do that, not just in Hollywood, but anywhere in DCA. You just don't have the time, the space to allow a theme to evolve. Not even at Grizzly Peak. People want to put it in Grizzly Peak for that reason, but it's still not enough time. Grizzly Peak is actually, it makes no sense to put it there, because in the sense of trying to borrow from the existing theming, because you can't just reskin and build Avatar. Avatar requires a blank canvas. It requires you to build it from the ground up in order to do it justice. But the one way you can transition Avatar in Hollywood is using the warp pipe method, like they do here at Universal Studios for Nintendo. You go through a warp pipe, and you completely seal that one end, and that way when you come out the other side, you're in another world. So you could make some sort of effect where you're going through time and space or whatever to get to, because Pandora's light years away, right? So some effect could happen. You put a tunnel, you put a portal. Same thing they're doing at Epic Universe. They're building portals so that way you can enclose each individual land from each other. Have you seen how big those walls are, by the way, at Epic Universe with the Nintendo World?
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
It's like a castle. Well, literally. But, just to get in, the outer part of it's an enormous wall that you go through in order to get into that side, because you can't even see it from the other side. So that's possible. That's the only way you make it work. That's the only way you make Hollywood work, is by going through a portal. And that negates any sort of issues you might have with making a smooth crossfaded transition from Hollywood to Pandora, because obviously it is impossible. It could only work at a place like Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, no, 100%, Dave. I agree. And that's why I thought the symbol out was kind of perfect, because you're going to have that logistical obligation to kind of go over Disneyland Drive. Mm-hmm. So it kind of hands you the grand reveal almost, that portal kind of feel, right? You have to go over the bridge.
It has to be a portal, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it has to.
So it makes sense, but
well, that's why, like, even in the very beginning, I thought it was going to go into Disneyland Park, where it was, because a lot of the times you can have a better transition in Disneyland Park, where I know that, again, it would have taken a lot more time, especially because OG, you had mentioned several times that it would have been perfect into what you called like the spaghetti bowl, with the monorail where the motorboat area is and what have you, where, because it's that fine line between fantasy and tomorrow.
Yeah, theme wise, it would have been a good
but based off of the scope of what they're utilizing, I still think they would need more land, and maybe that's why they leaned more towards DCA, because I mean, aesthetically, there's more room over a DCA, if they were to utilize the symbol lot. But I mean, obviously, I know that they're gonna give us something spectacular that we're gonna be like, okay, our minds are just blown by it.
Well, it has to be, because this is kind of like a J.K. Rowling situation. It's like they can't San Francisco this, because there's a James Cameron element to that, right? Like James Cameron's gonna make sure this thing is like 10 out of 10.
I think, see, now that you said that, I'm probably just going to use that in my everyday life. You can't San Francisco that. You just can't.
You just can't.
That's a verb now.
Right, exactly. And I like San Francisco. I mean, it's a cute little area, but
I love San Francisco.
Yeah, it's very cute. And I love the little J-pop music and all that stuff, but it's a very modest kind of re-theme. James Cameron's not going to put up with even retheming Grizzly Peak. He's going to want something built from the ground up, and that's just incredible, but where they put it is going to be crazy. And the other thing we got to think about too, I'm really curious your thoughts on this, Dave, this Coco ride, like this boat ride. And there's a lot, now this is just one ride, a little easier. There's a lot, I think this attraction has more options, so to speak, but like, where do you kind of pin it right now in terms of where it's going?
I'm 95% sure it's going where there was supposed to be a dark ride. Excuse me, when they built Pixar Pier, when they updated Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier. The Pixar Promenade where you can meet joy and sadness, right behind that, that's going to be the dark ride. Right on the other side of the tracks, the Incredicoaster tracks.
Interesting. Yeah, they have like that almost like a Hollywood Bowl style kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
You look at the old concept art when they first put up Pixar Pier. That was in that concept art. There are guests leaving, or no, I'm sorry, they're going in. They're going into something, and there's even a marquee poster of Coco there. But that was supposed to be an attraction back there, and the thought was it was going to be a dark ride of some kind. So I think they're bringing that back out of hibernation, as it were, out of they shuttered that part of the upgrade or the update to Pixar Pier, but they're bringing it back, which, by the way, is something that should give people faith when you talk about projects that are they always get cut, everything gets cut, and you lose things from this promised vision. But some of these things that they're talking about are projects that the Monstropolis at Magic Kingdom, that was rumored to be going at the back lot, right? That hanging door coaster was promised, or not promised, I should say. It was rumored by people who know things. And so even though we didn't get it then, we're getting it now, and I think it's great. I think it's great that they're finding a place to put some of these things that didn't get done, back when they should have.
Yeah, you're giving me hope that they're going to do Westcott, Dave. I'm going to hang on to that dream forever.
I don't want to go that far. I mean, Communicore is such a letdown. Yeah, that oh my God, that original concept art for Epcot, the Communicore and everything was just. I would love to have been in that space to see that happen, but.
Well, it's crazy too. I feel bad for Epcot because I went to Disney World for my first time last summer with this guy and had a blast. Epcot was a great park, but the thing is like that Communicore thing just came. I think that whole Epcot,
the whole Epcot just came in bad timing.
The worst timing. Yeah, you had JPEG running the show at the time. You had the pandemic, and then they Bob Iger came back, and there was a whole bunch of like corporate there's a corporate like seismic shift there, and it was like a perfect storm of like bad things happening and big changes. And Epcot, unfortunately, it suffered for it. I think if they were to do all this now for Epcot, it would have turned out much better. And it's sad because I loved Epcot. It's a great little park,
I think you're right. I think if they had started building the proposed Epcot, the one that we were promised, today, as opposed to pre-COVID, we would have gotten everything, I think, or most everything, certainly more than we got. And I even that communications area in the center, I think they would have built that. But you're right. It just really, really bad timing. Perfect storm for things getting cut. So that's too bad.
And as much as I'm glad to see that Leave a Legacy graveyard removed, but I would have rather, if I knew that was the case, I would have rather have them not touch it at the moment and just wait.
Yeah. Now, Dave, I want to ask you because you and I are Disneylanders. We're Anaheim guys for sure. But you've been to Disney World now a few times, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Well, in the modern era, twice I've been. I went once like 30 years ago, and then it'd been a long time since then. But in my fresh baked lifetime, I've been twice. And I've only been once, and that was like last year. But I'm just curious, what's your favorite park out there? Epcot. Epcot's your fave, okay. It is, yeah. Before and after the updates. I went to Epcot twice last year, and both times the walls were up, and they were still under construction, and I just had the best time of my life. I love Epcot so much. I don't care that those walls were up. It was so cool. I just love the idea of the World Showcase. It's the World Showcase. I mean, that's what I love. Yeah. It's beautiful. You learn about all these different. Cool. I mean, Figment and all that stuff, but World Showcase is amazing. It's an achievement. Absolutely. I went to this guy last summer, and we were like, I would be at Epcot, and I would tell George, "Oh, this is my favorite park easily." Then we go to Animal Kingdom, and I'm like, "Nah, it's my favorite park." Yeah. then we go to Epcot. Now this is my favorite. Epcot. But those are like my two. I think Epcot, Animal Kingdom. They were just because we don't have anything like that out here. Nothing comparable to that. Hollywood Studios is kind of like a DCA style park, and literally, and Magic Kingdom is like compared to Disneyland.
It's kind of Disney. It's
This guy calls it the live action version of Disneyland.
It checks all the boxes.
Don't sleep on the Magic Kingdom, though, man. I love the Magic Kingdom also. I think it's got its own great energy, but I get it. It's not the same. Even ask locals in Walt Disney World, they'll tell you that Disneyland is the better park. But but I get it. I still love Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, and that's been the crazy stuff going on over there with the Rivers of America and all that. I mean, that's like a whole thing, you know. But in terms of DCA, though, I want to kind of go back to DCA again. Because we got the Coco Dark Ride. I agree with you. I think it's probably going to go in that Pixar Pier area. But what are they going to do with this parade route? Like, because if they do put Pandora in Hollywoodland, what's going to happen with that? Like, are they going to reroute the parade? Because you can't have the parade go through Pandora, or maybe they just do. I don't know.
That's a really interesting question. What parade, by the way?
Oh, that's true. Wait, touche.
You know, it's funny because one of the silver linings to the conversation about the red car trolley is that you lose the red car, it makes Paint the Night possible again. Yes. Because that's one of the reasons why you can't run Paint the Night during certain times of the year at Disneyland, and why you can't run it at DCA on certain paths because of the trolley wires. So that does free that up. But yeah, that's another reason why I don't like Avatar there, because it just screws everything up. You can't. How are you going to run any kind of parade through Avatar? You just can't.
Yeah, you can't.
You know? So I guess you run it through Avengers Campus? Question mark. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense either. Right. So do you just run it? You just run it from Carthay Circle and back? But then where do you store the parade floats at the end? I don't know. No, none of that makes sense.
It creates a whole issue now. I mean, it creates a whole issue. And then that on top of the monorail, like you were saying, George, it's at that point, if they were to put Pandora in that spot, you're doing a whole 2012 again.
It just seems like they have to do so much more extra work.
Right.
To get from A to B to C, when you could just put it in the Simba lot and just go from A to Z in Rock and Roller Coaster time, 2.8 seconds. You know, it's like
yeah.
Well, with respect to the monorail, though, this is a point that I often make. If you saw a monorail, you go and watch Avatar: Way of Water right now, and a monorail went by in that movie, would you blink?
Well, probably not. There's a bunch of technology in that movie where you're like, okay, you know, they got crazy vehicles and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a mech. There's a guy running around with a mech suit in the middle of the jungle, you know, destroying the whatchamacallits. But right, so if you think about it from that perspective, it doesn't bother me at all if the monorail were to go through Avatar. That doesn't. But the problem with that, though, is that it does limit your creativeness. It does limit what you're capable of building, because there's this thing in the way, the show buildings or the set or whatever. You have to work your way around these things, but its presence doesn't affect the show for me at all. But it does affect how creative and how all the way they can go. It's just another reason and it's funny. I was thinking, well, what if they wanted to build Avatar now? Then that makes the backlot seems more likely, I guess. But because if you do it in Simba, you have to kind of wait for the Eastern Gateway? Question mark. Do you have to wait for the Eastern Gateway? But then you would still have to wait for the Eastern Gateway if you want to build it in the backlot, because
the bus route.
Yeah, the transportation depot or the hub. Yeah, that requires the Eastern Gateway also, because that's certainly the backlot's not enough by itself, right?
I don't think so. I think you have to dip into that bus load area, almost certainly. You know.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, it's a good size piece of space, but it's not. I don't know. I don't even know if that's enough, to be honest. At least in terms of doing justice to the property. Avatar, the world, the land itself is the character. Right. When you go to Pandora and you're like, it's kind of like. It's like Galaxy's Edge, right? How big is that land? It's enormous, but that's because the land itself is part of the story. I mean, you could say the same about other lands, but not quite to the extent that you can about Galaxy's Edge. The land is the character, and so is with Pandora. So you really need to do it right. And you can't just rescan. God. Every time I think about the backlot and that being the Avatar, I'm like, you can't just you'd have to tear that thing down to the studs, and you'd have to do the same thing at Grizzly Peak. Might as well just build it in Simba.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes the most sense. It absolutely makes the most sense. Yeah, it's crazy to me that they're even really kind of debating this so much because it just seems like the no-brainer in the symbol.
Well, we also have to go by what we always say here on the channel. If it makes
What's
sense, Disney's not going to do it.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think it all. What really the deciding factor is going to be the scale. Excuse me. How big do they want to make it? And I think that's part of the reason why I feel like they're undecided still. Pardon me. I need a cough button. They're undecided because they still don't know how big they want to make the land. Because so far, what I know, we know is just one ride, and then but you look at that concept art in this big space, seemingly, and we know where they're going to put in that rear third of the image, the top third of that concept art is the ride itself and the show building and everything. There's still 2/3 of that image of what, what is that? Is that just a dining location and a gift shop and then just themed space? If they want to make a full-on land, then that changes where they build it, because I don't think they can build a full land anywhere besides Simba. So they have to make that choice. How big? And I think that's the reason why actually they've hedged against calling it a land rather than calling it an experience, the Avatar experience, because I think initially the plan was something small.
Interesting. Now, I want to touch upon this. You touched upon it a little bit in the beginning, Dave. At the expo, like every other expo, fans were like, okay, this is the year. We're going to get the Tomorrowland announcement. This has to be the year, This time we're not going to get stood up at the
trapped again this year, man.
I know. Me too. I was like, I wasn't even thinking about it. And at the very end, people were like, no, I'm hearing stuff. Exactly. It's going to happen. And I got all excited.
It didn't even do that for me. What did it for me was when we were sitting there and they had the intro where they were showing like the silhouettes of the different parks around the world. And then at the very end, it showed Tomorrowland. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're actually really going to go through with it.
But that wasn't our Tomorrowland.
No, that was Magic Kingdoms.
Yeah.
But we didn't even get that.
Yeah. Well, they still, for whatever it's worth, I'll skip ahead, but people are wondering why they didn't build cars at the Speedway. They have other plans for the Speedway. So it's not that they could have done that. Instead, they're going to do cars and they're going to do something with the Speedway. I believe anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's a lot of real estate over there at the Speedway. They can do quite a bit over there.
It's a good sized chunk. But yeah, to your point, I was how many D23s is this? This is like the fourth in a row that we've all been waiting for 8 years now. We've been waiting for Tomorrowland 3.0 or whatever. And I was saying on Twitter, people kept asking me. I was saying on Twitter and other socials and videos, I'm like, no, don't get trapped in that idea that this is the year that they're going to talk about Tomorrowland, and then, like you said, at the whispers at the end, you had Braden over at Mickey Views. He's like, no, dude, it's going to happen. You son of a gun. And he even apologized later. He's like, sorry, bro, I had it wrong. But
yeah, it was rough. Yeah, we were sitting there and I was like, oh, we got no Tomorrowland. And it's like, here's the thing. It's hard because I really do want a new Tomorrowland out here in California. We need it badly. But the issue is, like, if Disney can't commit to like really doing it right, like really putting the money in, like really bulldozing like everything and rebuilding it, except Space Mountain, obviously, and like really just putting the love and the money into it, then I'd rather them wait. If they don't have the money or the resources right now to do it, then I'd rather them wait. But it's just tough because this has been an ongoing thing now for so long, and the land looks really, really rough. I think the issue though too, there's not too much incentive for Disney to start really ripping this land up because a lot of the attractions still pack them in. You got Space Mountain, one of the most popular rides at the resort. You got Autopia, which is still popular with families. You got Buzz Lightyear, which always has a crazy line. Star Tours, a line. Like, the rides are still kind of like, they're popping still, So it's like Disney's looking at this going, well, everything is still popular. Why are we going to go in there and start ripping everything up if we don't really have to? So I think there's not a whole lot there for them to motivate them into doing it. And then also there's not a whole lot of big IP they can throw in there, in a Tomorrowland.
Yeah, you just stole all my thunder. Thanks. I was gonna say I got bad news for you. I got bad news for anybody who's like thinking Disney has to do this. They don't have to do any of this because Tomorrowland is the most poppin' place. I go to the park 3 times a week, you guys. So I have a very intimate knowledge of what's happening in that park on a regular basis, and Tomorrowland is happening every day. Even when the Space Mountain is closed, and now Star Tours is 60 minutes, and Buzz Lightyear is 45 minutes or whatever. They sell a ton of merch in Tomorrowland. They have what three? Wait, no, they have 2 major dining locations there. And Pizza Planet or Alien Pizza Planet, Galactic Grill are bonkers busy every single day, no matter when you go. You can't find a table at Galactic Grill. You can't. So go ahead and tell Disney you need to shut this down for 4 years or more. What motivation as you said, what motivation do they have to sacrifice all that capacity and all that revenue for what? Because they can't. The biggest issue with Disneyland or with any park is capacity. You see that when the changes that they're doing at Magic Kingdom and all that, it's all about, they said the words, it's all about capacity, adding capacity. Right. What capacity can you possibly add to a land that already has 17 attractions?
Exactly.
What? So as much as you could say that they need to do it and that Tomorrowland's in bad shape, I'm sorry, but that's still going to have to be okay. And for what it's worth, I'm okay with that, to be honest. I really am, because Tomorrowland still makes me feel a certain kind of way. Nice. I love hearing the music in there, and Space Mountain, obviously, and even the lagoon. By the way, you mentioned Space Mountain as being the untouchable. The lagoon, as I understand it, there are plans. They have thought about it, and I think Braden was right. They were going to maybe talk about that, but I feel like they can't commit. They're not positive yet, but the 2 things that would survive are Space Mountain and the Nemo Lagoon. That is part of the future of Disneyland.
That brings joy to my heart, because
I know, right?
That's amazing, because the Nemo Lagoon, I love the aesthetics that brings to the park.
Yeah.
That body of water. No, you can't beat it. It's so important. Yeah. What say you, Italiano? The lagoon itself. I know maybe not the attraction, maybe isn't your cup of tea, but it just.
The lagoon, yeah. I would not want Disney to touch the lagoon at all. They could do whatever they want to do with the subs. I'm fine with it either way. I'll still go on the subs, but But the lagoon itself, it's just like every time that I pass by, passing the Matterhorn going into Fantasyland, like over by like the Alice in Wonderland way, it's like every time I pass it, I have to just stop and just gaze at it, because it's a natural beauty to Disneyland, and it's like a one of a kind to Disneyland. Because again, I know this is probably, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite with it, but like even with Magic Kingdom, there's just like nothing in Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World that has like those very subtle magical moments that you get at Disneyland Park.
Well, it's interesting. Didn't they cement over your lagoon for poo? If I'm not mistaken?
They cemented everything over there.
It's all cement, right? That's funny. Now, the last and final topic I wanted to touch upon with you, Dave. A lot of fans were upset, and I understand it. Disneyland didn't get a whole lot of love at this expo, which I was fine with, because DCA is more like the fixer-upper. Like,
more than anything.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It needs the rides, the capacity, all of the above. But I get it. People were upset. Like, we didn't get much for Disneyland. We got the animatronic Walt, which I think sounds amazing. And we got a logo for the 70th. Not a whole lot going on, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I kind of feel like the 70th stuff is like another announcement, maybe down the road or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They could, if they had less to talk about, they would have talked about what they have planned for the 70th. Obviously, there's plans, but because there was so much, meatier topics to talk about at D23 that they didn't have to get into the 70th. That'll be its own announcement on maybe whatever the next, event is. I don't know how the order of things. But I'll say this, if they were to spend every single dollar available on DCA, I'd be good with that, because it's absurd. it's truly absurd when you really think about it. The fact that Disneyland and DCA have the same ticket price. It costs the same to buy a ticket to DCA as it does if you're doing one park one day. I don't know what. I want to meet the person who does that, but you know what I mean? but if you choose that, and it's just not right. It's not right. These DCA needs significantly more to do, and so it would be fine with me if they spent all the money on DCA. If they took, the Simba lot and the downtown Disney parking lot and turned all of that into DCA, I'd be happy with that, because DCA needs more. If they did nothing at all to Disneyland in my lifetime, I'd be happy. I'd be fine with that. I don't require them to do anything at Disneyland because Disneyland itself has proven. I'm gonna just drop the mic here. Disneyland has proven itself over the past 5 decades to be the one and only. And I want Disneyland to be the place that is where people can go and feel safe. That attractions like Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean and the Mark Twain and the Rivers of America are safe, where the Autopia is safe and Space Mountain is safe. And because you can't, it should be the ideal of a theme park versus,
Right.
let's say, Magic Kingdom or whatever they're doing at Epcot, or at Epic Universe or whatever. That's going to be great, no doubt about it. But you can't. Walt said it's not a museum. Well, that's the one thing that Walt got wrong, in my opinion, because Disneyland to me is the whole place is sacred. Every square foot of that place, except for maybe Toontown. You could probably have Toontown. But although it's great, I love Toontown, but it doesn't have the same pull for me as the rest of the park does.
I feel you.
But I would be fine if they never did anything. Disneyland, look, the best rides. We have this conversation all the time in social and stuff. The best rides at Disneyland are 50 years old.
Yeah.
All of them. I just went on the Matterhorn today. The longest wait I had of any attraction today was on the Matterhorn. The rise was 45 minutes. The Matterhorn was 60, an hour. And it's like that every day because Matterhorn rules.
It does.
It really does.
It does. And you're right. And you're right, Dave. Like these older rides, like Pirates of the Caribbean is still the gold standard.
Yeah.
It's still the gold standard all these years later. We still compare the new stuff to Pirates and Haunted and
Yeah.
So
you can't touch those rides.
Yeah. And you're right. DCA, it needs it. And this is the issue I have with DCA. I love DCA. I've been a huge advocate for that little park because I see so much potential there, the untapped potential, and they don't really put a whole lot of love into it. But it's funny because this park, DCA, sits just feet away from Walt's Park, Disneyland.
Yep.
So if it's going to sit in the shadow of Walt's Park, I want this thing to be as close to amazing as close to as amazing as Disneyland as they could possibly get it. And I know that that's a tough order to fill, but at least get it as much as possible. You know what I'm saying? Because his name is still on the sign with Disney. It's feet away from Disneyland. Like they got to hit this thing out of the park. They got to really do something special over there. And hopefully, what we're seeing with Pandora and Coco and all that stuff, hopefully that's indicative of this park kind of making its way to where it should be. We'll see. What say you, Italian? It needs it, absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I'm actually with Dave. If they did nothing to Disneyland, I'm perfectly fine with it. I can go to Disneyland every single time I'm out there, and I'm completely satisfied. DCA, I do love the park, but I do walk out and say, you know what, this park is great, but it could be so much better. There's so much potential there. Yeah. It needs to grow. It needs to have more breathing room. It gives you more to say, hey, I'm banking for my buck when I do buy a ticket for like a one day. And it's like, okay, this is up to par to Disneyland as far as, having a full day's worth. And I even feel like that's the problem with even the Florida parks right now. I just feel like that there's not enough to do that makes them a full day park as individuals. See, and that's where a lot of people see it when they say, oh, there's only like 6 rides in Animal Kingdom. There's only a handful in Epcot. Well, if you look at the parks as individualized, but a lot of times with Walt Disney World, you have to look at it as a vacation kingdom resort.
It's a different animal over there. No pun intended, Animal Kingdom, but
Animal Kingdom.
it's a different animal. Like the star of the show isn't necessarily the parks over there. It's just this whole resort,
The whole
thing.
complex.
Yeah.
What?
So
George, are you a Florida local or?
no, I live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. I'm curious because you said there's only like 6 attractions at Epcot, and I'm like, do people not view the showcase as like I could spend 2 days in the showcase alone? Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
is that not?
Well, it's more so like too because I've seen several families because I observe a lot, and I guess these are like what we call normies, that they just kind of go and they walk, and there was this family and they had these 2 young children, and they said, okay, what ride is next? And they said, we went on all the rides. And they said, that's it. And they said, it's only 2 p.m. But it's like, yeah, for me, I could skip by, I was just going to say Future World, but it's no longer that, but like World Celebration and all that.
Yeah.
I could spend the whole day in World Showcase.
Oh yeah.
And, just that alone. And I enjoy, those kind of moments where it's like, I do enjoy the rides, the shows and everything, but sometimes it's just like, it's nice to just walk around and just breathe the Disney air, and it's like, and that's good for me. And it's kind of funny because, as I said, I'm from PA, but I travel a lot. Like, as I said, I'm basically a California local without being a local. Like
this guy, Dave. This guy was just out here in California. Stayed at Anaheim Main Gate, right, George? Yeah. And he was down here. He spent like almost the entire month of August here, and he only planned like 2 weeks initially.
2 weeks completely, and it hit like 4 weeks altogether.
Yeah. Every time I talk to this guy, he'd call me and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna stay another 3 or 4 days." I'm like, "Okay, cool," I'm like, "Cool. Why don't you just move out here?" But you're working on that though. You're working.
Yes,
on
I am. Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild. We always tease George though because he's got that Pennsylvanian accent. He says "Downtown Disney." But Dave, thank you so much for coming on, taking the time to kind of nerd out with us and talk shop. It was fun, a lot of fun. If you can kind of remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, our main home obviously is YouTube, Fresh Baked, and we put out videos, 3-4 videos a week on YouTube. Instagram is _Fresh Baked, and on Twitter we're Fresh Baked Disney. That's fresh with no E, and we do a lot of we're chatty these days on Twitter. Yeah,
very, very good. Yeah, make sure you follow and subscribe to Fresh Baked on all platforms. The Italiano. You can let everybody home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is, coming down below, everybody, with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today, whether it's Disneyland or even Walt Disney World, Pandora, the Avengers rides, Coco, just monorail, whatever you want to talk about. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this episode of OG 55.